I'm from Rochester, New York, but I was raised in Charleston, West Virginia. And my mother was an avid quilter. She quilted from the time she was 18 till the time she was 92. She did not care for my work at all. I always called her the Calico Queen, and she only worked from patterns. The biggest excitement of my life is when I went home one year and she wanted me to go with her to pick out colors for her next quilt. And it's like, oh, I've made it. She was a hard person, but she loved quilting and could not teach me, would not teach me, but as I got older, I got into it. Actually, it was probably when I was about 40 years old. Because I was left-handed and she was right-handed, it was impossible to teach me anything because I did it backwards. So, but in spite of that, and one other story, when I went to college, I studied music education. And I took an art class, and the teacher came up to me after we were working on the still life, and she said, "It's a good thing that you're in music because you'll never cut it as an artist." And I thought, many times I stopped and go, I was abstract before my time. So I worked as a CPA for years, and what happened is one year, this is many years ago, we got a huge Christmas bonus of $50. I went to Joanne Fabrics and I took my first quilting class. Hated it. It was those 1-inch blocks that you sew down to fabric, then you bend them over and you sew them again. And I made this god-awful art heart. It hung on our fireplace, and my husband just thought it was wonderful. He came home one day and it was no longer on the fireplace. He goes, "What happened?" And I said, "I destroyed it, it's in the trash." He got upset. I went to the trash, I pulled it out, and I was trying to learn free motion quilting. It was a mess. So he said I could keep it in the trash. So little did he know that the house was going to be taken over with quilts. I do not have an art degree, and I don't feel like I've missed a thing because I've studied with some amazing people. Some of the names you may know: Carol Taylor, who was in Rochester, Jane Dunwall, Nancy Crow, Karen Eckmeyer, and Ellen Noble. And Ellen Noble, 2017, I think, she did a show, and she was a curator for a show in Rochester, New York, and she was also one of the jurors. And I'm going to walk and talk. The piece here is called Summer Dance, and it's hand painted. I hand painted this. I got into painting and dyeing like most of us do. I hated this piece, and to this day I still hate it. But Ellen loved it, and she gave me the Juror's Choice Award. And I thought, well, I gotta like it now. Yeah. Ellen likes it. So this I put out on the lawn, and I just started the Jackson Pollock technique, just started throwing paint on it. And then after I had a layer of paint, then I started going in and making the swirls and things that I normally do. And I didn't pay attention to color at all. I just thought, whatever kind of hits me, I'm going to put it on. And when it was finished, I could see the dancing figures. And like I said, I could not stand the piece. But I put it in the show, and lo and behold, Summer Dance. So this is probably one of my first pieces that I did painting. Like most of you, if you're into quilting, when I first started, I did patterns, and Carol Taylor got me away from that. All of her work was abstract. She never worked with a pattern, and that was just a natural progression. The very first quilt that I entered into a show in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, got honorable mention. It was a triptych of the Trans-Siberian Light Show. I had seen Trans-Siberian Orchestra, and I loved the show. Couldn't wait to get home, threw paper up on the window in the back of our house, and started drawing the light show. That piece sold. I thought I marked it high enough, but apparently I didn't, so I don't have it to show you today. I also studied with Katie Pasquini-Massapist, who was in Santa Fe, New Mexico, but she now resides in California. A wonderful, wonderful artist, and what she does is she paints. Then she takes her painted piece and she'll take a view view master, I'm going to call it, and she looks for interesting pieces in that piece of art, and then she blows it up and puts it into fabric. So I studied with Katie for one week, and I came up with this. So the process behind this is taking your painted piece, blowing it up, and then cutting all these pieces of fabric to meet the template that you have up. Most of this is cotton. The black is fake velvet. And then I did not put anything else in this. So this is called Watermarks 2, and I have done several pieces in this whole vein. You'll notice if you when you come up and look at these pieces, they're heavily quilted, and I do all of my own quilting. I don't send it out, and I do it on a domestic machine. So I don't have a long arm. So this was a challenge, and I've done a couple pieces that are larger than this. I drink red wine, and I swear a lot. So that's how I get through my pieces. So this is with Katie. This is the Ellen Noble. And a few years ago, I learned about flour paste. And what you do is you take flour and water, 50-50, mix it together, and you smear it onto a piece of fabric. Once that's dry, because it is flour, it starts to crack. If you want more cracks, you just start wadding it up. Once you have the cracks in, you go back in and you cover the entire piece with India ink. You let that dry, and then the fun begins. Because now you've got to wash all of that out, and it is a mess. When I first started, I did it in our utility sink with paper on the bottom so it didn't go down into the sink, because it's horrible. It's just horrible. A friend of mine, Kathy, who's here today, we finally last summer did it in her backyard with a hose. Much easier. So once you have that done, then you come out with this wonderful design, because the ink goes into those areas that have not been covered with the paste. You absolutely have no control over what comes out. I've tried, other people have tried to go in and make marks with a stick or something in the flour paste so that you have a certain design in it. I have not had success with it, because when I do, there's other cracks and it disappears. So it's fine with me. It's just whatever comes out. You'll see here there's a little color. That's because I put it on top of a piece of rack that had color on it from our dyeing. That'll disappear somehow. That may end up being colors there, who knows. So once that's done, then I sit down and go, do I want to leave it? Do I want to put something else in it? So this piece is one of my earlier ones. The black that you see is from that India ink flour paste. And I use only the best coloring tools that you can buy. The red that you see here is done with a Sharpie magic marker. And I just sat down one day and started coloring in some of the spots, and it took me probably about a week to get it to the point where I liked it. And again, using the quilting techniques, if you look at it, you'll see that some of it follows the pattern that's in here, and some of it I just go off in different directions. Then later on, I did this piece, and this piece, it was white with the flour paste and the India ink. I decided to over dye it to see what happened. So that's what I did. Again, I'd like to call it a mistake, but it was a design opportunity. I accidentally somehow got these colors in there. So I thought, well, it's okay. I can work with it, and I did. And I actually named this Breakthrough, because there was just enough color that was breaking through that looked like it was something going on in a storm, and that daylight coming through when the storm was over. Again, you can tell I really love this technique. This is another one with the flour paste, but I did it on blue material. And I liked it, but I was going through, not going through, I'm still there. I love trees. So I decided to make a tree. Well, after I did the tree, it was like, it needs something else. So I put some branches off on the side. And then I decided it needed some swirls, just so you could see the motion that was going on in the trees. And I still didn't like it. It was black and white. And then a friend of mine said, you know what's missing? It needs a little red. And when you have a quilt and it's black and white, always put a little red in it. It changes the whole thing. So that's where the red came in, and it still had that sense of motion, which I liked. From that, I did a lot of work working with paint and dye. And I'm going to skip over this and go here. This, again, is all paint. And the black that you see is something that I actually meant to put in. Where before, the black was always the background, and then I worked around the black. This time, back of it was painted, and then I purposely went in and put the black where I wanted it. Again, only working with the highest materials that money can buy. This is actually acrylic paint, and this is my favorite pen, black Sharpie markers. And somebody said the other day, they said, but you can heat set markers. And I said, yeah, you can. If it's permanent, all you have to do is run over it, and it's fine. And remember, none of these pieces are ever going to see a washing machine. I don't know if I would do it on a bed quilt, but I don't know if I'd spend the time to do this type of work on a bed quilt. So these two pieces, in fact, you can name them yourself. They have no names. And then this last piece is my newest piece. I belong to a group called the Sisterhood of the Scissors. And every year we pick out a piece of material to do a challenge. And that you have to use part of the material that's given you so that it's recognizable, but that's it. There's no other rules. Last year there were no other rules. So this piece was very gray. Dark gray, light gray. You can see this is some of the colors that were naturally in that piece. And I work a lot with color. So this was really a challenge for me. What am I going to do with this? It's really kind of drab. So I thought, well, let me sit down with my famous magic markers. And I started coloring in some of the pieces that you see here and the little pieces. And the more I looked at it, the more I felt like it was deep down in the earth, the rock formations that if you cut down into the earth, the different layers that you see. And I thought that would be perfect for a volcano to come out of. So that's where the red, the orange, and all of that came in, because now I was trying to create what would have been a volcano coming out of the earth. That's why it's darker here, and then it goes into the lighter colors. And then come on in, I outlined all of those, couched it in black so that it would stand out more. So this is volcanic. I just was here for a retreat last weekend, and I probably have 5 pieces that I worked on, which are quilts again. It's like, oh, I don't want to go there. But I can't give it up. I've done it for 28 years, so I can't give it up. I keep going back to the original. But during COVID, 2020, a friend of mine decided that we would get together, and I said, I've always wanted to make figures, sculptures. And that led me into the whole world of doll making. And I don't like the word doll, because when I tell people that I make dolls, or that's one of the things that I make, they immediately go, oh, could you make one for my granddaughter? And the answer is no. I call them character vessels, because each of them have a character. So I worked with her for a while, started taking some other classes from some notable doll makers. They still say doll, but one of my favorite teachers, she is in the United Kingdom. She only teaches by correspondence. So every week you get an email from her, And she would give you the instructions of what to do, what to think about, but it was completely free form, which worked with me just fine. That's also where I discovered the love of handwork, because when she makes her characters, they're all by hand. She does not use a sewing machine. And I swore that I would never get into handwork because I would never get anything done. It would take me forever. Well, that's not true. I love the handwork, and that's why I've gone more into the work of 3D sculpture, because I have more control over what I'm doing when it's by hand. The lady that I'm talking about is Johanna Flanagan. She has a website called The Pale Roque, and she is amazing. Her vessels do not look anything like you would give a child to play with. So the first character vessel that I made, it's not allowed in our bedroom. My husband thinks it's creepy, so she does not reside in the room with us. This is Charisse. Charisse is a mystic. I did decide to cover her a little bit so her face isn't creepy. But again, I take a lot of different classes, and I took a felting class. So this is the felted head that I gave Charisse, and she just looked like a mystic to me. So I thought, well, that's her name, and like I said, she's not allowed in the bedroom. She will never be for sale, to my husband's chagrin. It's my first girl, so I have to keep her. But I actually love her. She just, for some reason, she just says so much about what's going on. She is, there, we'll cover up her face in case some of you think she's creepy too. And this is a wire structure, and this is probably the hardest way to make a doll, and that's what I started with. And you just, in this case, Charisse is made with coat hangers that you just wrap. They have the arms and the body. And then what you do is you wrap batting around the wire to get the form of the doll. And she's very thin. She is how I would like to be in my old age, but that's not going to happen. So I have to make another one and fatten her up a little bit. But you just keep wrapping it till you're happy with the structure of the body. And then however you want the outside to look, this is in material, you just start wrapping the material around. And that was my first introduction to hand sewing, because you can't stick this on machine. So you have to take your hand sewing and put the pieces together so it doesn't move. And as she developed, there wasn't anything else to do except for that hat that looked like a witch's hat. That's when I decided that's when it needs the bell. So from that point, we moved into all kinds of different ways to make a doll. Joanna was perfect because she used all kinds of material. She used things that she would find in clothing stores. Sometimes she would use newspaper and wad that up inside. My favorite exercise that she had us do is to take tissue paper and start twisting so that you had a head, so that you had arms and you had feet. And it was just so freeing, and that's what I needed, because I tend to get in my head and just be very straight and boxed when I start something new, and I didn't want to do that with my character vessels. So it gave me the opportunity to also understand that there's no set form for a vessel, for a character vessel. And in fact, Joanna used to say, your vessels can have 3 heads, 2 arms, and a foot, if that's what you want, if it speaks to you. I did one, and it never sees the light of day anymore, but the head is stuck under the arm. And I can't finish it because I don't know what else needs to be on it. I did paint it, and it's like, yeah, I think sometimes you just have to leave it in the closet, and sometimes it comes out at the right time. You go, you know, I can finish that now. So this one with the head under the arm. And I don't want it to look like the characters that you see where the head's cut off and they carry their head under their arm. Hocus Pocus, where he carries his head under his arm. It's like, I don't want that. Another friend during COVID introduced me to reading. So this is the only one I have left. I created a free form, which is from Johanna's class, and this is all hand beaded. I had at one time, I had 12. I'm down to this one. But I enjoyed the working with the beads, the peeling of the beads, putting it on the doll, and again, creating design as it goes along. I do not draw things out. It's just when I start beading, they have a life of their own. When I did all of these, it has a life of their own, and it just goes where it goes. Sometimes it works, and sometimes it's a happy mistake, and I throw it in the closet and come back years later. So from there, I started working a lot with driftwood, and because I love trees, I would go collect rocks, collect branches. Our garage is horrible because I have a stack of wood that will work in a piece someday. So I started leaning toward incorporating the art with, not fabric, but with branches. So that led me into a whole series of little girls, character vessels. This is Andrea. Andrea sits on a piece of driftwood. The faces, I started drawing and I started to learn how to do faces. And all of my character vessels have jewelry on them. They have some kind of bling. And the other thing too is they seem to be all of the female persuasion. There's been 2 exceptions to that, and I don't know why, but it's just maybe it's what the goddess within me. Yeah. This is Daphne, and Daphne also has a piece of driftwood, and I actually embroidered her face on this one. I have a lot of yarn, so I just started, after I've got the form in there, I just start throwing things together to cover the body to see what happens. Sometimes I have to take it off, but it's whatever hits, and you'll see some of these beautiful rocks. And these 2 are my latest pieces. This little girl does not have a name. So I found this piece of driftwood and the one that she's sitting on, and I went back to the wire sculpture using the coat hangers and created her body and her face. So I still go back and forth between the 2 different structures, but I really, really enjoy working with the fabric and not the wire. This is not my favorite time of year. I find holidays very difficult because of things that have happened in the past, which we won't go into because this is not a counseling session. But I created this piece because I started working with clay to make faces out of clay rather than drawing them on. When I had all these different faces, I found this perfect piece of driftwood. So I stuck them on there, gave them different hair, and it was like the weirdest people I've ever seen in my life stuck on this. Voila, family reunion. So if you get a chance, look at the faces. I don't know how your family is, but I can probably name about every single one of them in my family. I just love this because it's chaotic, it's dysfunctional, and it's the perfect family reunion. Bart Coe. If you've ever read her book, The Healing Doll, and she works a lot with hanging figures as well as others. And I took a class from her probably 2 summers ago, and there's stories, she tells stories with hers, which I do too as far as giving them names and a little bit of the background. But I like the idea of being able to hang them on the wall because how much room do you have in your house to set things around? So I started working in figures that you could actually hang on the wall. So I came up with this series here, and this is just a few. Like I said, many of my girls are gone, which I'm glad. I'm glad somebody else likes them. Quick story about this one and one other. I have never worked with dark-skinned faces. Being white, I just never went there. But my doctor, she's now retired, is a black woman. And it was so funny, I went to visit her and she goes, well, can you make me a doll? I said, sure. And I said, so you want blonde hair and blue eyes and light skin? And what do you think? So she always looked over her glasses, even when she was my doctor. So I tried to make a face with dark skin, and it's difficult because you've got to do it in such a way that the features of the face come out. And I'm still working on it because I'm still not quite where I'm happy with it, but I keep working on it. And this is Jovina. They're fun. It's another way of expressing myself that I can hang on the wall, much like these. And I only use leftover material that I have at home. I don't go out and buy other material. This is made from a cloth that was on an altar in a Catholic church. One of the sisters gave me a lot of the old, unused altar cloths. And they're always lacy, so that's what I did there. And there's a lot of pieces that you have left over because you make mistakes. So I never throw away an arm or a leg or a head. I keep them in a box. It's kind of creepy. But you never know when you might need that size. So this takes me into my large sculptures. This is Charlie. Charlie is 4 feet tall. Charlie has 6-month-old tennis shoes on. And again, it's an old stool that I think the guy was going to pay me to take it. It was so beat up, and I thought, well, that's okay, because I'm going to beat it up more. And a piece of driftwood. The face, I went through a time where I was studying Picasso and his faces. So this is actually one of my own creations of the Picasso faces that I've done. And of course, Charlie is male. He's one of the few males that I've made. But he has lovely earrings. And his nails are done just perfectly. And he has this beautiful bling ring. So, you know, you just have to open your mind. But Charlie came about because I wanted to make a big character. So I had the driftwood and stuff, and I thought, well, let me see what happens. The worst that it could happen is it doesn't look right, and I'll just, try something else. So Charlie's arms are stuffed with cloth, with batting, and then I just covered it and decided that this is the look of Charlie. But Charlie's hair is nothing more than yarn. The face is painted with acrylic paint. I actually did the drawing, and then I transferred the drawing onto the face, and then I colored it that way. And I am going to make more. I just love the idea of the larger sculptures. So when I was making Charlie, I couldn't get the hands right. Not that they had to be perfect, not that they had to look like hands at all, because by this time I had studied with Johanna for 3 years. I didn't need to be perfect. So I was sitting around and I was in my box of body parts, and I found one of the hands that I made. And I thought, oh, I wonder what would happen if I made that into the doll. This is handy. And she is just one of those leftover hands with a face. Her body's very simple. The yarn hair, of course, the nails that are coming out of her head. So you can make sculptures, you can make character vessels out of anything. That was the start of my 3D work. I took a class on how to do baskets, because I've always had this desire to do weaving, and particularly basket weaving. So I started, like most people do in basket weaving, of wrapping the material around rope, and then taking it to the machine, zigzagging so you can get the pieces to stick together. About 6 months into it, a friend of mine said, I'd really like to learn to do that. Can you teach me? And I said, yeah. I said, do you have a sewing machine? No. I said, well, you can borrow one of mine. And she said, oh, they scare me. How am I going to teach you to make a basket and you can't use a sewing machine? So I thought, let me see if I can figure out how to do it by hand. Again, I did it by hand. I loved it. My fingers were sore, but I loved it. Again, handwork. All of these baskets here are done by taking cloth, wrapping it around rope, clothesline, and then as you swirl them around, you stitch them down with heavy thread. I like doing it this way much better than doing it on a machine, because you're kind of limited on a machine as to what you can do because of how the machine is made. What I discovered is you are under no restrictions when you do it by hand. And that's when I started creating all these weird shapes with different kinds of material. The red one that's up here, that is made out of some kind of yarn. That it was the yarn that you could expand, so it looks like it's narrow, but as you start working with it, you can open it up. So that's what happened with that. This one is actually a dye project that I had, that I was trying. And on one side it was paper, the other side was cloth. And I really liked it, so I used both sides. But it's still cloth. And you can make it any size that you want. And then I really like the idea of sticking in, again, sticks or driftwood, because it just gave it a more natural look to me, which I really enjoyed that. I'm trying to stay away from the word organic. So I know it looks like this is the end of my story. About June, I decided to take a weaving class. Well, no, let me back up. April of last year, a friend of mine from the church that I attend, she emailed me and she goes, "Oh, have you seen the branch weavings?" Yes. Can you learn how to do that and teach me? No. I didn't say no, because I've always been fascinated with the branch weavings. So I thought, well, I can't do it right now. Give me till April, I'll figure it out. Had to be March. So looked online, figured out what was going on, and then started the search for the Y branches, which, that's a supply at my house too. I've traveled the world to get Y branches. I've brought them back from West Virginia. I've brought them back from Mackinac Island. Everywhere I go, I'm always looking for Y branches. So I learned how to do it, and I thought I was teaching her. And she said, no, let's teach a lot of people. And I said, okay. So that April, I taught 21 people how to do branch weaving, and it has exploded in our church. Mm-hmm. And it's unbelievable. It exploded in me. I think at last count I've made 15, and that's not the only thing I do. But now I've been moving into different ways of doing the branch weaving. I only brought one. This is a branch that's has three Ys in it. It's a little hard to see, so you'll have to come up and look. But I actually did all three branches. I used different kinds of thread. I put a ring in the back, so it will hang on the wall, but I couldn't get it to hang here. So this is just one of many. This is actually a piece of driftwood that I found that apparently, if you look at it, has been in a fire of some kind. So that's the branch weaving, but we won't stop with that. That's when I decided to take a weaving class. Weavers Guild of Rochester, there we go. They have amazing machines, looms of all kinds. Table, hand looms, the big standing ones, and I was so excited to take this class. I was sitting next to a lady and I told her, I said, I'm just loving this weaving. And she said, would you like a loom? No, not really. Yeah, I would. She goes, my husband used to weave. He made shawls for the deacons of the church. And I said, are you sure you want to get rid of it? And she said, yes, because I don't do that. And I offered to pay. She said, no, it's yours. I had a very kind friend that met me at my house when my husband was playing golf and helped me get it in the house on the stairs. He'll never see it. It took him 3 months to see that I had it. That's how amazing. And he'd walk by it every day. It was upstairs and he'd walk by it and he never saw it. Till the day I had to carry it downstairs to take another weaving class where they taught me how to set up the loom. So that's where I am right now with making things, and I'm sure that this weaving, this 3D weaving that I will do, because I have found many, many pieces where it's on the loom, but it becomes a 3D piece of work. So stay tuned. If they invite me back again, I'm sure, I'll have some 3D weaving, which I already have with the branch weaving. But one of the things that I have to say is it's just so wonderful to jump in and try something, and it will lead you to something else, which will lead you down something else, which a lot of us call going down the rabbit hole. So you don't need a lot of fancy material. You don't need a lot of fancy tools except Sharpie magic markers. that is a must. But there's just so many things that you can create out of different things. Just opening yourself up. And that's what it's done for me. It's allowed me to be goofy and crazy, which just is me. And if it works out, it's great. And if it doesn't work out, that's okay too. Stick it in the corner and someday it will. Thank you.